Hello, welcome to Soulprint Insights. I'm so glad you're here today. Today we're going to tackle the question about how to program a pendulum. So, first of all, there are about a million different ways, I'm sure, to program a pendulum. In fact, there's probably more. You can program a pendulum using your own style and methods. There's a couple of things you want to make sure you sort of include, but it really is a very personal and individual process. I am going to share with you sort of the way I do it and some of the things that I think you should be mindful of when either programming a pendulum or working with one. I tend to not gravitate towards things that are very ceremonial or very complicated. I really like things to stay on a super kind of basic level. And so when I program a pendulum, I tend to follow kind of that same philosophy. Okay, so first thing let's talk about is finding your pendulum. So whether you're choosing one in person, like you've gone into a metaphysical store or a store that has pendulums, or you are selecting one via the computer, via the internet, you want to make sure that you choose one that sort of just resonates to you. And resonate can be all kinds of things. It can be, oh my God, I love the look of that one, or that's my favorite crystal, or, I love the way it's put together. I love the look of it. But however it is, you're drawn to some things and you're not drawn to some things, right? And oopsie. And so you want to be careful that you're not sort of just randomly picking one, that you're really sort of focusing in and getting some thought, because understand you're going to be creating a relationship with this divine tool, and that's exactly what it is, okay? So you want to make sure it's something that just it feels comfortable in your hands, you like the energy of it, okay? So that's sort of step one. Once you have the pendulum in your hand, I like to clear mine before I really do any work with it. So there are different ways and methods to clear a pendulum. One of my favorites is during a new moon, full moon, setting the pendulums out in the sunlight and moonlight. I also like to sort of place them on selenite, which is a really, really super powerful crystal for clearing. But it's not the only one, okay? You can use quartz, clear quartz, smoky quartz is going to draw away any negativity attached to this thing. And part of the reason you want to do that is because in the process of the pendulum being created, to the best of my knowledge, pendulums are not mass produced, okay? They are created by hand. And so that person that created it was touching it, and then it was being touched by the packaging, and then it was being, especially if you're buying one in a store, then it was touched by the person who unwrapped it and the person who put it on the display, and it's probably touched again by other people who, took it out and looked at it and, didn't get the right vibe from it, so they put it back. So what you want to do is ensure that all negative or lower vibration energies are released and sent to the light for transmutation. Now, very often when pendulums are made, they are the maker, the creator of the pendulum, sets intentions. Okay, so they'll pray over it. So they're going to set an intention for your highest good or the highest vibration. Intentions that are set like that, that are set within sort of that dome of the divine, are probably not going to be stripped away when you do a clearing process, but certainly any other vibrations, you're going to want to make sure that those things are kind of just, moved along, because you don't want anybody else's energy on this pendulum. And speaking of which, this is, as I said, a divine tool. You do not want to hand your pendulum around like a party favor, okay? You are the only one who should be touching this. Even if, somebody comes along and they says, you know, could you really, I really need you to ask your pendulum this question. That's fine. And often what I'll do, if the person is right in front of me, I'll just ask them to set their hand under the pendulum. Okay. But I do not want them touching the pendulum, because you want this thing to just completely resonate to your energy and your vibration. And once you have made that connection with the pendulum, you're going to discover that the answers come to you, you know, very quickly. Okay, there's not a lot of sort of lag time between the question being asked and the pendulum answered. And the tighter the connection, the faster the pendulum is going to react. So once your pendulum is cleared, you're going to want to carry it around with you for a period of time. You know, some people might just want to do it for a couple of hours, tuck it in your bra. If you're a woman, you know, tuck it in your pocket, like that. But you want it really close to the body. And some people choose to carry it around for a really, really long period of time. Some people almost like don't move without one. Okay, so again, it really becomes an individual preference. Okay, so you're going to want to write down your intentions, and I'm going to share with you in just a little bit my intention, something that I typically use this or a variation of when I am programming my personal pendulums. And one of the first things that you're going to try to establish with the pendulum is a yes-no answer. And pendulums sort of are their own creatures, you know, and they kind of have a yes-no vibration that they naturally resonate to. So this pendulum, for example, show me yes. This pendulum likes to go around and around for yes, and show me no. And you can see it shifts straight into the back and forth motion for no. And again, part of the reason that this thing responds as quickly as it does is because I have formed that really tight bond with it, okay? Now, there are times, however, that you really want to have the pendulum respond in a certain way because of the kind of work you're going to do with your pendulum. Now, I have showed you these before. Some of you may remember, and some of you may not have seen it before. But you can make up charts like this to work with your pendulum. Okay, so you can see this one has January through December on it. This one has percentages, so 0 to 100. One of the reasons that you might, for example, want to set up a pendulum to go in a backwards and a back and forth motion is because it's a really great way to check if the pendulum is sort of sitting at its highest clarity. So I'm going to use this pendulum, and I'm going to ask it, to go back and forth for the answer, because that is how I'm going to get clarity on the answer. So my question for the pendulum is, are you cleared and charged at what percentage? What percentage are you in terms of clarity and charge? And you can see it is very, very clearly moving towards 100%. So this means that the pendulum is in top, you know, form, if you will. But, you know, again, so you can either say literally, this is the motion for yes. Okay, so this is how you would do it. You would say, pendulum, I would like you to respond in a back and forth motion for yes. Back and forth, yes. Back and forth, yes. Okay? Or pendulum, I would like you, so that's yes. So then pendulum, I would like you to go round and round for no. Okay? Round and round for no. Round and round for no. And you have caught the fact that I am saying it 3 times. And, you know, and honestly, there's pendulums move in a great variety of ways. For some people, they always move clockwise for one and counterclockwise for another. Some go back and forth, so again, unless you're setting the intention that you specifically want it to move a specific way because of the answers you think you're going to be seeking or working with, then, you can often just let it tell you. So as I showed you earlier, this pendulum, please show me yes. Okay, and you'll notice the pendulum almost started to answer the question before I had finished answering it. That is how you know that there is a really, really tight connection between you and the pendulum, where you've achieved that real contact. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a little bit of time, because the bottom line is you and your pendulum have to develop not only a trust with each other, but you have to develop a respect with each other. Okay, so that would be literally how you can program the motion, or how you can find out the pendulum's preference. Okay, so yes, it's showing me that this is a yes, and this is the pendulum liking the word yes. Okay, so once you have programmed it and you are ready to start using it, what you want to do is sort of set up a couple of test questions, okay? So these are going to be questions that you really don't know the answer to, but that you're going to find the answer out very quickly, like within a day or two. All right, so it's hard for me to come up with kind of an example of that, but it's okay. So I'm going to pick one that's really crazy random. Okay, so I've just bought a lottery ticket, and the lottery ticket is in my hand. And honestly, this isn't a good example because you really shouldn't use the pendulum this way, but my mind's a little blank at the moment. So I bought a lottery ticket, and I'm going to ask the pendulum, am I going to win anything on this lottery ticket? Anything. So, a free play or $2 or whatever it is. And then ask the pendulum. And then, again, within a day or two, there's going to be a lottery draw and you're going to know the answer. Okay, so that's one good way of testing it. It can be simple things like, is the package that I'm waiting for, is it going to arrive tomorrow? Am I going to hear from, my best friend Susie in the next 6 hours? Okay, so whatever it is. So you want to ask it a couple of questions so that you can, two things. One, you can ensure that the pendulum is vibrating and answering the question in a truthful manner. And two, that you and your pendulum are in sync. So for example, let's say I ask the pendulum if I'm going to hear from Susie. And I don't hear from Susie, but the pendulum told me that I would, right? So one of the first things you're going to do is not say the pendulum's dumb and it's wrong and it's lying to me. What you're going to say, you're going to go back to the pendulum and you're going to say, pendulum, again, please show me your preferred motion for yes or no. You're going to want to literally communicate with the pendulum and find out if you're actually interpreting the answers correctly, okay? Now, speaking of that, you're going to be really careful when you ask a pendulum a question, okay? So let's say you want to ask the pendulum if you're going to get a new job, right? Well, the pendulum has a far more expansive view of the universe than any of us do. So you might ask the pendulum if you're going to get a new job, and the pendulum says, yes, you are. But when you were asking that pendulum, you really kind of had a specific thing in mind. And then it didn't happen. You didn't get that specific job. Well, it's really possible that you're going to get another really terrific job, just not right now. So in some ways, you want to be as specific as you can be with the pendulum. And if possible, you want to set sort of maybe a timeline, right? Am I going to hear about this new job I'm going to get within 7 days? Okay. So you got to be really, really careful, because if you ask, and there's a tendency to ask open-ended questions, right? Am I going to fall in love again? And, you're thinking that means a new intimate personal relationship. Well, the pendulum's just talking about love in a broad way. So maybe you fall in love with a brand new grandchild, or maybe you fall in love with a brand new pet, right? So you want to be really careful and specific when you're asking the questions. Secondly, when you get an answer, and let's say it's something that you really, really want the answer to, and your pendulum is saying yes, yes, yes. What I suggest you do is ask the pendulum again in a way that will create a no answer, so that you're basically asking the pendulum the same question twice, but you're setting it up, if you will, so that whatever the first answer is, you're going to get the opposite answer. Because that, again, is just a really good way of confirming that you and your pendulum are sort of working on the same vibration. Now, pendulums answer questions or access answers from a variety of different places. So let's say, for example, I want to know if I should eat a banana or an apple today. Okay, which is going to be in my highest benefit? So I'm going to ask it. So pendulum, if I haven't done this yet, let me show you. Pendulum, please show me yes, your preferred movement for yes. Oh, I think I did this. Okay, and you'll see that a circle is yes and back and forth is no. Okay, so pendulum, should I eat a banana today? Will it be in my best physical interest to eat a banana today? And it is saying yes, I should do that. Okay, and so is it more important that I eat an apple than a banana? And you can see the pendulum has moved into a no response. So what I learned from that is that, yes, I've asked the question 2 different ways, and yes, my body is requiring a banana. Okay, so those answers are literally coming from your higher self, right? Because your body knows what your body needs. And so the higher self, energy and vibration, is answering the question. But very oftentimes, you're asking questions and you're actually accessing those answers from a higher vibration or a higher, dimension, a higher energy being. And so you want to be very respectful and mindful of the fact that you are having a conversation. You are in communication with an energy being that comes from a higher vibration. And the reason you know it's higher is because when we program this, we program it so no lower vibrations can get in. I'll get to that in a sec. Okay, so be mindful of the fact that some answers literally come from one vibration, but other answers may very, very well come from another vibration. Also, the other thing that you want to be mindful of, I have shown you how this pendulum will move from a yes into a no by itself based on the question and the answer. If I am asking a series of questions, I tend to like to stop the pendulum between between questions. And sometimes literally you can actually just say, pendulum, stop. And it stops moving. See that? Just stops. But typically, because I don't like, commanding things, I'm going to just stop it. Okay? And the reason for that is sort of simple. I don't want one answer bleeding into the next. So, if it's going round and round and it wants to move into a no, it's actually going to take like a little bit of time for that thing to move into, you can see it slowing down, and now it's going to go into its no. The back and forth is no. Well, if I'm really anxious about an answer, I may be too quick to say, oh, yes, it's saying a yes. When in fact, if you had just given it another 10 seconds, you would have got the more accurate answer. So you want to be really careful and mindful about that kind of thing. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything that I wanted to cover. You can also set the intention for a pendulum. If you have several of them, you might want to use one for personal. Okay, so this pendulum I am going to use exclusively for asking questions about myself and my family. Or this pendulum I am specifically going to ask about health concerns. But very often, if you only have one or two pendulums, you may want to just set it for general use. Okay, so kind of basically whatever question I have, the pendulum is going to be able to respond. Okay, so you might want to make note of the time, if you can, on your as you're playing this video, because I'm now going to give you my intention. These are the intentions that I use to set for my pendulum. Okay, so at the 21-minute mark even, I ask that any and all work I do with this pendulum takes place within a divine dome of highest trust, truth, vibration, and clarity. Within and around this dome is perfect protection from all dimensions, times, and spaces. Only high vibrational, positive energy is able to come through the dome to answer my questions asked. This divine tool will provide the highest truth answer of the highest probability for this moment in time. Okay, that's what I use. Feel free to tweak it. Feel free to use it. Certainly feel free to create your own. That's one of the things that you're going to want to do when you first get your pendulum, is sit down and actually write out your intentions for the pendulum. Because in doing that, again, you have personalized it. And again, I repeat, you're in communication with the divine, one way or the other, whether that divine is your own higher self, because of course you are, or whether it is angels or archangels, whether it is a higher vibration, whatever it is, it's being used as a tool for that communication. And so you always, always want to be very, very respectful. And so there you go. That's kind of my way of handling a pendulum and of dealing with one. And again, and the only other thing I want to say is that sometimes people say, you know what, I keep getting, I think maybe that I'm making the pendulum move, that I'm, my desire to have a yes answer or a no answer is so strong that I am making the pendulum move. And honestly, that can happen, right? So the way I sort of combat that for myself personally is I ask the question and I redirect my gaze. So I'm going to look up, I'm going to look down. Sometimes I'll just close my eyes. You can typically feel when your pendulum starts moving. And once it feels like it's actually got a pretty good movement to it, and you can feel it in your fingertips, then and only then will I open my eyes or redirect my gaze. That is sort of the way that I have figured out, again, for me personally, how to ensure that I am not literally influencing the pendulum with my own intentions. Okay, so this pendulum also came, by the way, I mentioned this before, but it came from Aquarius Age Things. So if you're interested, look it up. Paul does beautiful work, and I got 2 of them, and I love them. But so find your pendulum. Go to a store, go online, go shopping. And the other thing I will say to you is, in an absolute pinch, you can use almost anything for a pendulum. Okay, be mindful of the fact though that you're using it in a pinch, and so you want to ensure that. It's protected. So if I was, for example, in a place where I didn't have a pendulum, but I really, really needed an answer, I could literally take this off and get this necklace to act as a pendulum. Okay. And for me personally, before I do any reading or have any conversation with my pendulum, I always ask that I am under the dome of protection, and that all the answers I get are to the highest possible accuracy. When it is done, when I am done working with my pendulum and I am ready to put it back into its safe space, I will often thank my pendulum because, again, not only am I thanking my higher self, if that's where the answers are coming from, but I am also acknowledging the higher realms, and I am acknowledging that they took the time and the energy to have a conversation with me to help me find the answers that I was seeking. So there you have it. Thank you so very much for joining me today here at Soulprint Insights. Your comments, your likes, all of it is brilliant, and I'm very grateful for it and appreciate it very, very much. So until I see you next time, stand in your strength and stand in your light. Bye-bye.